And we talk about like maybe some of what the actual tests are that we're doing with the program to some degree, to kind of what's important that we've seen, and then how that ties to what's important to you, Dave, as far as from a hitting standpoint.
Yeah. So with any rotational athlete, so overarching umbrella, with any athlete, they're going to place their feet into the ground, and they're going to utilize the ground reaction forces for whatever they're going to choose to do, whether that's going to strike something, hit something, throw something, whatever it is. So there's a specific sequence to get that force harnessed through their body from their feet to their hands. Yep. Like if I'm going to throw a ball, if I'm going to hit, swing a bat.
Yep.
So there's certain parts of the body that have to do certain things. And we start, more importantly, with the hips. The hips in baseball have to rotate. Now for a hitter and a pitcher, they will rotate further one way on one hip and rotate the opposite way on the other hip, just because they have to leave one and enter the other. And then in order to then take that up the chain to, say, the shoulders, it has to transfer through the midsection. So we have some level of test-to-test trunk control, and a very simple body weight trunk control test. Just say you can transfer the force you generate from your hips to your shoulders. And then can you continue to rotate your body through your shoulders and your T-spine? And then do you have the right amount of control of your shoulders themselves, and then wrists, and then eventually the bat. So we have like these areas of the ankles, the hips, the T-spine, the shoulders, the midsection, to tell us everything we need to know, so that then when they go into the cage with you, I mean, like, I want you to work on a little bit of separation. I need your hips to fire first, and then your shoulders fire after, or whatever. Then they actually have the physical ability to do it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's when we look at the testing, like Aaron said, it's about transferring of force, transferring of energy through the body, right? And how well can a person do it? And we certainly see that the guys with the fastest bat speeds and the highest exit velocities get good separation, and also then have control of that separation. It seems to be pretty consistent.
There's definitely a correlation between the two, for sure.
So when we're looking at hip internal external rotation, and we're looking at thoracic rotation, are big metrics that we use, and we use tests that have been well documented studied, so we get consistent variables there. And then one of the more difficult things I think to assess is this idea of core. What makes someone have a strong core? Like what the hell does that mean? And so when we think about that, we look at the core as this combination of hips, lumbar spine, thoracic spine, shoulder, and everything working together as a unit. So that means you got to have hip mobility, trunk stability, thoracic mobility, shoulder stability, and these things all got to come together. So we use a few different stability tests to look at both shoulder and trunk stability in there. And if those things are all adding up, then that should correlate to what we see rotationally, whether it be more exit velocity, more bat speed, or more velocity in the throw. And it's seen that consistently across all levels, whether that be youth, collegiate, or pro, in the thousands of athletes we tested around this region, for sure.
Definitely, that just all helps, especially on the hitting side. That if you can move quicker, then in theory you have longer to see the pitch and make a decision if you want to swing at that pitch or not. So the more efficient you can move, the better off you are for the swing.
I think a real example is Mookie Betts. So Mookie Betts is by far and large not the largest person in the league, but he's one of the best hitters in the league, and that he has actually statistically he has the fastest hip rotation of any player in the major leagues. Definitely. And you slow down his. So there was I'm not sure where I saw the video, but they slowed down his swing, and his hips get to almost full rotation. They square up to the pitcher before his shoulders even go.
I definitely dove into that.
Golfers talk about lag, right? They talk about lag between the hips and the shoulders, and it's just the same concept of this sequence that happens from the hips. So Mookie Betts creates this like incredible pre-stretch through the core, and from what Tony's saying, the core is really measured by how well you can take that pre-stretch and transfer it efficiently to the next segment. And so if you can fully stretch the tissue across the middle of your body, and then harness it to whip the upper half through, the bat's going to go at 110 plus miles an hour, and you can be a $150, and it doesn't matter. You'll hit it 400 plus feet. It's insane.
Yeah, well, just watching his video, you can see how much separation he gets and why all that power is, where it's being created from. Yeah. It's pretty fun to watch.
So my first day when I walked on the field, I should not have looked at you.
No, but I guarantee I wasn't doing what Mookie Betts was doing. No.
Yeah.
So
either way, so I think it's one of those things like we have to start. It's rather than the body assessment. It's like you have to. I love these assessments that we're doing because it gives you information that then you can really relate back to the swing.
Definitely, and just going into Mookie and things like that, I mean, obviously he's a special mover and a special athlete, so when you do assess a kid that does not move like him, you can't tell him to move like Mookie.
No,
You can't
no,
try to
absolutely
say,
not.
hey, I want you to watch this video of Mookie and I want you to try to replicate that. It's just not gonna work.
No. And I think there's a communication piece there too, because when I go there and assess them, and I tell these kids that, like, I'm assessing you and I might tell you that you don't move well enough. I'm not telling you you're not a good baseball player. I'm not telling you that you're not going to have a great swing. What I'm telling you is if you improve this measure, then there's a strong correlation. You may be able to maximize your potential a little bit better.
And that's a great point. I mean, you're going to find a lot of baseball players that don't move ideally, but are still really good at hitting the ball hard consistently.
Yes.
And it's a good reminder to everybody that just because you are classified or you're deficient in a certain movement doesn't mean you're not going to be a good baseball player. There's a lot of good baseball players out there that don't move specifically
Hunter Pence
very
swing
well.
a bat. Good God. Guy, shouldn't swing a bat, but he played very successful 15 years in the league. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
I think that's so interesting. We talk about people talk about sports specificity and specificity of training and how detailed we get. And TPI really, I think, uncorked this, 15 years ago as they started their process and looking at rotational athletes and using 3D motion camera analysis. And they looked at guys in practice, looked at guys in game scenarios. Mostly with golf was their main interest, but because of what they found, they expanded it to other rotational athletes, especially throwers, and then into hitters, because this is fascinating. And some of the findings they had were that practice swings were very, very different than game-like seeing swings. So, for a golfer, looking at a guy swing in a lab versus actually on the tee box trying to hit the ball to a certain target in a game-like environment was a different swing pattern,
No doubt.
right? And we see different swing patterns from player to player, and to say there's one particular swing that works is not really the case. So you're seeing this, and you already alluded to it, that you've said a few times where that data for some guys is good. That data for some guys is good.
Yeah.
That information for some guys is good, and that's the art of coaching and this whole process is how do we go from, all right, what's required? What are the foundational things? Because we could take a hitter and say there's key elements that Mookie Betts and Mike Trout and Hunter Pence all share,
Definitely.
right? That are common, and then there's variations that they all have as well that are okay, that are tolerated,
Yeah.
and maybe even make them a little bit of a better hitter in certain scenarios or in certain types of pitches or whatever. So there's always some little bit unique variety there, but what's happening is we're seeing a connection of data of what happens when the ball leaves the bat or when the ball leaves the hands, and that's sexy, really cool data.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at slow motion 3D capture of the swing, and you can see this now watching a game on ESPN on the replay.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You'll always see the hips are in front of the shoulders, and the bat's the last thing to come because you're trying to create this whipping action.
Yeah.
So you'll see that consistently. But what you don't see, and what you may not be able to see without a little training, is this: how much internal rotation are you getting on the left hip? How much rotation are you getting in the thoracic spine? How much neck or cervical rotation do they have to keep their eye on the ball through the contact phase? And those little subtleties are all factors in what makes a guy successful or not. And then you alluded to the mentality. Does he have the confidence that he can hit the ball?
That's a whole different subject. Definitely.
Another element.
Yeah.
So we're certainly not saying that there's only one way, but really that everything does matter. And when you're looking at an athlete, it's looking at the complete picture. But we certainly see that each of these have some consistencies, and from a body standpoint, hip rotation, thoracic rotation are big factors. You see tolerance to torque, as Aaron was saying, was a big thing. Can you put some force behind the bat and get that separation? And then but in baseball, we've not so much this year, I wouldn't say, but I feel like in a few years past, it seems like everybody was out with an oblique strain.
Yeah,
Where
that's true.
These kind of things get hot, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's get separation. It's like, boom, everybody's getting really separated, but no one's got the stability to control it.
That's true, yeah.
Now we're pulling off obliques, and guys are missing, months out of the season
Yeah.
because they're getting in positions that their body's not good at and they can't tolerate. So those are all things we have to consider when we're developing and we're talking about skill set development, tissue adaptation. It takes time and practice to get that done.
To get it dialed, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.